Hey everybody. How did you all enjoy the episode? I mean, it was a little weird because we all kind of knew it was coming for the first time. I mean, I, most of the season I knew it was coming, but it's different for all of us to have this communal experience of knowing pretty much most of the main points that were coming in an episode thanks to the classic Icelandic leaks. Why do they always come from Iceland? I never quite understood that one. Must be something different about how their streaming software or their providers work, where it's just like just sort of doing their own thing out there. Oh, I missed quite a lot of conversation while you guys were waiting. Sorry about that. Um, hey, Steven. Redist, Luna Dark, how do you pronounce that? It's not Kavoth, it's Koth. Koth the Bloodless. I didn't realize we had a king killer in the chat. Shame that series isn't getting made. That's a good one too. Yeah, I rewatched the Damon's dream sequence, I think like 5 times. Um, very, very interesting what they're doing there. I don't know where where do you guys want to start? What in this? Oh, do I have subscribers only mode on? Hang on a second. Uh, Something seems strange. Did I make another stream by accident or something? Maybe. Yeah, the Green Man was a pretty big surprise. Didn't really see that one coming. I was going back and forth during the week talking about, was that a child of the forest or was that actually um, one of the ancient order of the Green Men, the humans that guard the island? Kind of curious which way they're going on that one. Oh, sub only in the chat. Hang on a second. Sorry. Uh, I don't. This is gonna be kind of not a very long stream as usual. Maybe I'll do another one later. I am super super tired today and not feeling super well either. So, um, you'd think this would be my pride and joy episode, the one where Damon puts his hand on a weirwood tree and absolutely loses his mind and sees Daenerys and the White Walkers and Bloodraven, and there's a green man. Like, this is all my stuff. I'm just this is gonna be much more of a chill, less of a shouty, excited stream, I guess. Um, YouTube Studio keeps telling me things are going wrong. Not really sure what. That's okay. Yeah. So they talked about that. Um, so there's a couple things about that whole Harrenhal sequence between Alice and Damon that I thought was extremely interesting. I think a lot of people, and I've seen people talking about it with spoilers and across Twitter and Reddit and all that stuff, and they were talking about how, oh no, not the White Walkers, oh no, Daenerys, how could they tie them in together? And that commentary blew my mind. I don't understand how you could think they were going to make a show that in no way tied into like Game of Thrones. Like, I can certainly understand people being still not thrilled with the way the series ended, but it's a prequel to that show. It was never going to be a separate property. But I think the part that really intrigued me is that when the scene starts, I don't have screenshots or all of this stuff, unfortunately, this time. Let me see if I can find one with Damon real fast. Hey, there's our man, the future, maybe Three-Eyed Crow himself. Shout out to Gray Area for that one. I think she's going to get that one right. I think they are going to make him get entombed in a weirwood throne in the end. So the part that really intrigued me is Damon is sitting in his weirwood bed, and Alice Rivers sits down at the end of it with a candle. And what she's there to do is to take Damon to the weirwood tree, Gurm's weirwood tree. I don't know if you guys saw it, by the way. That's George's face in the weirwood tree, which I thought was a very nice touch, and he seemed genuinely moved when he saw it. But Alice is not happy about this. If you go back and check, Alice is actually crying as she's sitting there, and there's tears streaking down her face, like she had just finished crying as he woke up. And she seems awfully morose about the whole thing. She seems kind of unhappy about what she's doing, which is kind of an interesting way for her to go about this, because that's not really a reaction that we've seen from too many prophetic characters so far. Like, I think the last time we saw a prophetic character react so poorly to something they knew they were going to have to do, I think it was Melisandre with what? It was Melisandre with Shireen. That was like the only time we've seen somebody, like a prophetic character, actively upset about what they're about to do. And it's kind of curious. All Alice really does there is she puts his hand on the weirwood and then lets it kind of do its thing on his mind and shows him the future and shows him what's coming. Why would that upset her? I've been sort of racking my brain around that. I think one possibility is that Alice also knows what's about to come. For instance, she knows that... Okay, so before we go too much further, for all you guys in the chat, I'm going to talk about some spoilers in this stream because kind of have to for some things to make sense. They literally ended on like 15 different cliffhangers, and talking about them will make no sense unless I sort of talk about what's in the book. So, oh, hey, Sandrixian, how's it going? Hey, Bernie, you're buffering? Well, stop buffing. You don't have to buff. Oh, a super chat here from First Last, $10. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. If you pause during Damon's visions, that cave was not the same one from Game of Thrones, and that wasn't Bloodraven. Far too young. Also, the White Walker is leading men, not whites. First long night. So, thank you for the super chat. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with some of those things. So that definitely was Bloodraven. He had the wine stain thing, birthmark on the side of his face, and they prominently showed us to him. And then they did the three-eyed raven coming out from him. So that is Bloodraven. It's just, this is going to be far younger than we see him. Probably when he goes to... That's probably the moment that he joins the Weirwood throne. Not the ancient corpse that we see. So that is Bloodraven. That is Brynden Rivers. We'll get into the dream. He did look younger than you'd expect for that time. He's like 60 or 70 or something like that when he leaves the Night's Watch and basically joins the Weirwoods. We don't really know how that happened though, so... But yeah, that was definitely Bloodraven. And the White Walkers, they were whites, but they made them look less desiccated, less like walking skeletons. I paused a couple of times too, because I definitely saw what you saw. I was like, those don't look like normal whites that I'm used to, nor did the White Walker. That was something they did very different for this sequence. They changed a lot of existing sequences and character design from Game of Thrones. So for instance, obviously Bloodraven does not look like that in regular Game of Thrones. The first Bloodraven sort of does, when he's kind of up in the tree like that, but a very different throne motif going on there. I think you could also see Bloodraven only has the one eye in this part. When they cast Max von Sydow, they basically abandoned all that. He's kind of just sitting in a bunch of branches. This is much more directly a throne that Bloodraven was sitting in. I don't think that was the Night King. It just looked like a White Walker to me. But all of those scenes are new footage. If you go back over the next few days and check them out, brand new White Walker design. That scene is nowhere in the original show. New Bloodraven design, new Bloodraven's cave design. And then also that was not Daenerys from the main series. That was a brand new shot of her with the dragons behind her. Obviously, it was not Emilia Clarke. It would have been cool if she turned her head to see her and be like, "Oh my God, that's Emilia." But yeah, it was. I'm kind of curious. They didn't talk about it in the after the episode. Maybe it'll still come out in interviews and stuff like that. Why did they choose not to use Game of Thrones footage and to recreate all of this with different details? I mean, okay, we know one. The reason Bloodraven got designed is that Bloodraven is Ryan Condal's favorite character or favorite Targaryen, not in the dance. He got asked that question by History of Westeros during an interview. He answered Bloodraven's his favorite Targaryen that's not in the dance. So obviously it's probably been sticking in Ryan Condal's craw that the depiction of Bloodraven in Game of Thrones doesn't really look like that character. They don't even name him. We call him Bloodraven in the main series because we all know who he is. But that's not necessarily the case in hang on a second. Let me move that stuff around. In the show, they just call him the Three-Eyed Crow or Three-Eyed Raven over and over again. They never name him. And so I think that redesign was done specifically for Condal to put in the Bloodraven he knows and loves, which was a very sweet thing for him to do. But yeah, a lot of changes were made to it. They called it a White Walker in the after the episodes. Yes. I don't think it was the Night King. But yeah, it was all quite different. I wonder, so from story-wise, those seem to be pretty literal images for a prophetic character. There was no symbolism, there was no uncertainty. It's just that Damon didn't know who they were, not that they were different images. Like when you talk about characters like Daeron the Drunken, he literally sees things that are totally different. The same for John the Fiddler. Like he sees a great black dragon falling on Dunk at the tourney at Ashford, and it turns out to be Baelor Breakspear, but it's not literal. Damon saw literal images of all the characters. So I guess we're just talking about this now. I mean, of course, this is my live stream. Of course, this is what we're going to talk about. So one thing I've been wondering is, well, okay, also thank you for the super chat, but going back to what I was kind of talking about before, Alice being upset and crying about what she's about to show Damon. So the spoilers I'm talking about is that Aemond's going to take Harrenhal in season 3. As Damon says in this episode, he's going to take his army and march on King's Landing, leave the Lannisters behind, and abandon the castle. Aemond said in this episode he's going to go to Harrenhal to try and fight Damon. They're going to pass like ships in the night. And when Aemond gets there, he kills everybody. He just goes on a killing spree, kind of like he did at Sharp Point. He just slaughters the entire household, and he slaughters everybody in the castle except for Alice. So there could be a sense of doom around her, that she knows she's setting events in motion that will be very difficult for her to go through. She hasn't talked to the people of Harrenhal, but that doesn't mean she might not care. Very, very interesting. I would love to hear an explanation from Gail Rankin, because they didn't talk about in the after the episode what Alice is crying about when it started. So I guess we can go through the images, but first, super chat from Steven Stark. Thank you so much, Steven. $5. Thanks, buddy. Damon got that good vision from direct contract with the weirwood sap, a weirwood that was freshly awoken by blood sacrifice last episode. That's a really good call. Damon did offer the weirwood king's blood in the last episode. He offered it Willem Blackwood. Blackwoods were ancient kings in the north and ancient kings in the Riverlands, adherents to the old gods. Their sacrifice to the weirwoods would be a big deal magically, and also just like for meaning for them. It'd be like cutting off a Stark's head in front of a weirwood. Cutting off a Blackwood's head. Also, speaking of, rip Willem. Yeah, that's a really good call. That it was a blood sacrifice that opened his powers. And also, I'm fairly certain that Alice gave him weirwood paste when they first met. So, kind of been sort of leading him up to this. That, just sort of waiting to wed him to the trees, as it were, I guess. Or to allow him to see what's going on. And I think that kind of makes the case that not everybody could put their hand on the weirwood and then suddenly see those visions. It seems that Alice, she said he was a closed fist, and that basically she has opened him up and to realize that there are greater things in this world than him that will not be governed. Oh, yes, I did, Mallory. Thank you for the $2. Did you hear the weirwood whisper traitor? I actually didn't the first time. I had the captions on, and then I went back and I was like, oh, ooh, interesting. Somebody. So, if you guys didn't catch it, while Alfred Broom is talking to Damon in front of the weirwood and saying, I would never, ever, ever, ever betray Rhaenyra. We need you to be king. Damon, you're the best. You're the guy we need. On the whisper on the wind, we hear the word traitor. So those of you who may remember, this has happened before. Bran Stark, when he goes back in time and sees Ned, calls out to him. He does it at different moments in the books versus the TV show. In the books, he does it while Ned is in the Godswood at Winterfell, and he says father, and Ned looks around, doesn't know what's going on. In the show, he does it at the Tower of Joy and shouts out for Ned. And again, Ned hears him, is confused, and looks away. So in that moment, when Damon and Alfred Broom are talking in front of the weirwood, there is a greenseer from the future looking back and watching this conversation. Kind of interesting to wonder which one. It could obviously be Bloodraven. He was literally the first vision here. It would make a lot of sense if that's who did it. Obviously, Bran Stark is another possibility. He's done it before. He could do it again. He's not limited, as we saw when he became the manifestation of the three-eyed crow. He could see much more than just the things in front of the Winterfell weirwood. This one could do it too. If you guys watch Gray Area, she made a really good theory that I think is probably going to come true. And the idea behind it is that after Damon dies in this vision, okay, hang on. At the end of his story in Fire and Blood, he and Caraxes crash into the God's Eye with Aemond, as Helaena talked about, and we saw Damon's kind of floating through the water down to the depths, and it's presumed he's dead, but nobody ever found his body. Gray Area's theory is that he gets fished out by the Green Men, the same one we saw running through the episode at the Weirwood, and they basically make him a green seer, or they put him in a weirwood throne underneath the God's Eye. It would be very interesting if it is Damon in the future looking back at his own timeline and seeing this moment and whispering traitor at Alfred. Maybe out of annoyance, maybe out of anger at what ends up happening during the war. It certainly, Alfred does play a pivotal role in the end of the dance, more or less, in a way that that is not obvious now, but just wait for that to come. So yeah, I found that super interesting, Mallory. Been sort of chasing it down through my head, which green seer would have done it, which one would have gone back and whispered traitor at Alfred. Damon's an interesting one, a very interesting one. If MJ is right, then that would check out. I think the obvious answer is that it's Bloodraven. So the implication of the dream itself. So if you look through the images, hang on, let me pull it up real fast. We'll get to the rest of the episode, I swear. So we see Bloodraven, Three-Eyed Crow, White Walkers, and an army of whites, a bunch of dead dragons. That appears to be Tumbleton. Damon stepping through blood and mud. Then he falls into the water and he's drowning. Then there's a red comet in the sky, eggs in the fire, Dany hatching the 3 eggs, and Rhaenyra on the throne. And then Helaena talks to Damon. So I think the implication visually from the scene, and they don't go into this after the episode. Again, maybe this will come out in some sort of interviews or something like that, is that when he puts his hand on the weirwood and the sap, and the first thing that sees him is Bloodraven looking at him in the Three-Eyed Crow. I think we're meant to understand that everything that he sees afterwards is being sent by Bloodraven to Damon, much in the same way that Bloodraven later does to Bran Stark. Oh, we're going to get to Helaena, don't you worry. Also, yes, Lady Sophia Valari and Alfred bounce after Damon bent the knee. Yeah, if you check back and look closely, he literally runs out through the crowd. He does not bend the knee. He's just out of there. So yeah, I think I was going back and forth with a friend about this, and we were trying to think about, we're talking about, are those visions him seeing the future, or are those visions being given to him to make him do something? I think it's the second, because I think with the order of images, it's all specific to him, more or less. Like, I mean, so Bloodraven looks at him, the Three-Eyed Crow comes out, and then Damon starts seeing images. So he sees the White Walkers and the army marching. He sees a bunch of dragons dead. He sees himself falling into water and drowning. He sees the red comet. He sees the Targaryen with the dragon eggs. He sees Rhaenyra on the throne. And I think it's instructive to kind of look at what's the outcome of the dream. What did it do to Damon? Because Damon is still plotting to sort of push himself forward. He called Broom a traitor and walked away, but he liked the suggestion, and all the Riverlanders were sworn to Damon. If you guys noticed, when Rhaenyra walked in, nobody dropped to their knees, nobody bowed, nobody said "my queen." They all just looked at her and were like, "Not sure you're our queen." So the outcome of Damon getting this vision and his kind of vision quest, as it were, within Harrenhal was to get him to abandon his own dreams of being king by showing him the costs it would be, by showing him how much it would suck, and then finally showing him sort of his role in this larger story rather than being the chosen one himself. And at that point, he finally has given up this sort of this vanity that he would end up being king, that it would be that they would rule as Jaehaerys and Alicent, but Damon would really be in charge. So I think in that sense, the visions that he got are not meant to be literally the future in the sense of like he just kind of sees events. I think they're being sent to him as manipulations, as everything has done this season to Damon. His mind is being messed with, and this is the final one, which would make sense with somebody like Damon. With Bloodraven. He doesn't show characters the objective future. He shows them the things he wants them to see in order to get them to do what he wants. Like, he doesn't show Bran images of Daenerys taking the Iron Throne. He doesn't show him images of other parts of the story to come. He tempts him with images of how he will fly and all the things he wants. So I think that's what was going on. You're probably going to actually hear Gray Area talk about this a lot. Her take on it was that this was a confirmation that Daenerys is Azor Ahai reborn, and that this whole thing just meant that Dany's the chosen one. And I think it was more playing to Damon's vanity. And also his bloodline, that obviously he and Rhaenyra are related to Dany. She comes from them through their son Aegon. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And of course, Helaena. So Helaena appears at the end of his dream and says the words, "It's all a story, and you are but one part in it. You know your part." So the part I found really, really fascinating about this is somebody in the chat wondered if Alice is Helaena pretending to be Alice Rivers. I don't think that's what's going on. But what is interesting is that, Sword of the Morning, no foreshadowing of Jon Snow. There's no mention there of Bran Stark. What is it doing? Why is it showing ads? Stop putting ads in. Oh my god. It's really just showing him the fire side of Song of Ice and Fire. It's not meant to be, I don't think it's meant to be a definitive, like, only the Targaryens, only Daenerys matters, that kind of thing. So the interesting thing about Helaena is that somehow she can talk to Damon, but also she talks lucidly. She kind of, what's the right way of saying this? She doesn't have the same lack of grasp on reality in this moment that she does normally when she talks, when there's sort of this like dreamy sense to how she talks and there's like a disconnected nature. This is Helaena that is confident and knows exactly what she's saying and talking to Damon through this, which, so on the way I sort of thought about it is that it would make a lot of sense that the world of prophecy and dreaming and all that stuff is all kind of connected in a sense. It's all just like there's this one place sort of bound out of time, I guess, that they can all interact with. It's just how you get there. Green Seers get there through the weirwoods, dragon dreamers get there through the dragons, through magic, whatever. It's all kind of like a magical single place or whatever that they can sort of talk to each other. And I thought that was really interesting, notably that this happened in The Expanse. I don't, spoilers for The Expanse, but oh my god, what's his name? After Miller dies, he kind of comes back as the proto-molecule that's talking to James Holden. It's not actual, well, it's not really Miller, but it kind of is. And he sort of talks in riddles, and he's hard to understand, and he sounds actually a lot like Helaena. The way that things are hard to understand, but as they get closer to the proto-molecules creators space station in the ring. This isn't going to make any sense if you guys haven't seen the series. But basically, as he gets closer to it, the proto-molecule Miller starts making a lot more sense, and he's a lot more lucid, and he can have like actual conversations with people. And it seems like Helaena, when she's in this prophetic astral dream plane or whatever it is a very different person than she is normally. It's like that's the true version of her, and the one that we see in real life is the one that's kind of like the secondary part of her personality. Sorry, that's not gonna make a lot of sense. Yeah, doors and corners. The interesting thing about it is that we know that this was happening in real time. This wasn't somebody pretending to be Helaena. This wasn't some kind of like strange vision or Damon just seeing her for some reason. You can see her finishing the sentence as she's waiting for Aemond. So what's happening is she's talking to Damon in this dream world, but her real body is saying the words out loud. To just wherever she happens to be standing. And this, I think I'm going to make a video about this. This kind of tells you a lot about the nature of Helaena and why does she say so many random things? Why does it seem like nobody understands her? Why does it seem like she's talking nonsense all the time? She's not. She's not talking nonsense, but she's not always talking to the people right in front of her. Yeah, The Expanse is great. You should read it or go watch it. That scene is the same in the show and the books. Both are awesome. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Jason B. Appreciate it. Thank you for the $2. Appreciate it. So every time Helaena says something weird, every time Helaena says something kind of completely out of pocket and no one knows what's going on, we can now sort of infer that she's not talking to the person in front of her. She's talking to somebody else within sort of this dream realm. Maybe she's talking to Bloodraven. Maybe she's talking to Green Seers. Maybe she's talking to other dragon dreamers. And it's like, it's almost like her behavior in the real world is almost like interference, I guess. So that's something really interesting to think about. and the implications of it. Where I made that video about Helaena a while back, and I got a lot of people that that sort of made the implication that Helaena is has like autism or some kind of similar condition, because she does have a lot of behaviors that seem like it. And one thing I always kind of push back against it is that, like, Fia Saban is sort of acting that way, but I don't think that's what's happening. I think that she's magical, therefore what's actually happening here is going to be something very different, even though it looks the same. And I think this is more or less the explanation. It's like it'd be like, what's another example? Battlestar Galactica, if you guys have seen that, there's the scene with the hybrids when you try and talk to them, and like they're half in the world of like weird prophecy stuff and they're half in the real world, and trying to talk to them is a bit like trying to talk to Helaena. I think that's kind of what's going on. There you go, 2 sci-fi references to try and understand what's going on with Helaena from one little scene. Also, makes you wonder, will this happen in the future? Can Damon and Helaena now talk? Who else can Damon see? Oh, thank you for the super chat, Moroi. $50. You're always way too generous, Moro, but I appreciate it. For Helaena and for Alice Rivers, love seeing Bloodraven in the vision. That was a real highlight. That was really cool. Yes, Christina, the pilots of the Cylon ships. Yeah, the hybrids. You guys may not know this about me. Much like George R.R. Martin, I actually generally like sci-fi more than fantasy. Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire is kind of a notable exception. George wrote like 60% sci-fi stories, 20% fantasy stories, and then like the remaining 20% were some mixture of horror or modern fiction. And I tend to bend the same way. I like science fiction more. Except for this series, which is awesome. Oh, thank you, Mike Hanna. Super chat. $2. Haven't watched yet, just saying stuff to Joe. Bad stream to watch. If you haven't watched the episode yet, go spoil all over the place. Oh, similar message from Jason B. Thank you so much. I didn't realize that people watch the stream before watching the episode. That's kind of fun. Also, yes, Helena's words to... So this is one part that I actually wasn't super happy about. Okay, YouTube's trying to put in ads all over the place. Sorry if some get through. I'm trying to delay them, but at some point then I'm not going to be able to. I don't know why that's on. So the part about Helaena seen in this episode that I don't like is we could sort of presume that we know that Helaena knows a lot of her future. She said the thing about the rats right before Blood and Cheese. She said the thing about Aemond losing an eye before he'll get Vhagar. That obviously came true. The beast beneath the boards. What she did this episode was far more wide-ranging. She basically revealed that she knows the entire arc of the Dance of the Dragons. Again, spoiler alert, I said it earlier, but spoil here again. Everything she said comes true. Aemond does die at the God's Eye. Aegon will return to take the throne. He will have his victory in the end. Also, quite clearly, she seems to probably know her own death and what ends up causing it. The problem isn't that she knows all these things. I think the problem is they just told the whole audience the end of the story. I don't know. I'm not sure that was a great choice to just say, like, you can watch Damon's vision and kind of put it together. It's like, well, he falls in some water, looks like he's drowning. Maybe he drowns in the lake or something like that. Okay, that's kind of like guesswork. They just had Helaena basically turn to the camera and say, so Aegon wins in the end. That means Rhaenyra dies. Aemond, you're dead at the God's Eye, etc., etc., etc. I'm not sure it was a great choice to something to put into the episode. I think it would have been better if maybe she sort of said it more cryptically, or just like maybe not as much. Yeah, I don't know. I love Helaena. Oh, thank you for another super chat, Mike Hanna. I'm watching as we speak. Oh, a mistaken super chat. I haven't seen that one before. Yeah, and flat out tells Aemond that he's going to die at the God's Eye, which means as he leaves, he knows it will be his ending. So Ryan Condal said before the season, The History of Westeros, he said that characters will start noticing Helena's powers and start listening to them. And I guess this is it. Aemond will be the character that has noticed her prophetic powers and will start listening to them. Maybe Damon dying in the God's Eye Lake is not super important to the show. I mean, he may not die. There's always been... Nobody knows what happens to Damon at the end of the dance. He just fades from the history books. I mean, there's different theories within the text about what happens to him. Aemond dying is a noted fact. They end up finding him later when they drag Vhagar's corpse out of the water, and they pull out his skeleton with Dark Sister still through his eye. So, I don't know. I think they should have... I think they should have done what they've done previously, and I think they should have at least made it less direct about what's happening, or just not done it. I don't think just having a character turn to the audience and say, hey, do you want to know how this story ends? Ta-da! That's a weird choice. Especially for someone you spent 2 seasons making sure everyone knows, has true dreams, and gets them right 100% of the time. There's no ambiguity. She told the audience Aegon wins. And obviously, yes, us book readers, and they also said that in Game of Thrones. I think Joffrey says it, and I think Shireen says it. But, there's always new viewers. There's people that don't pay attention. It's quite a thing to just drop that. So, yeah, I don't think that was such a great choice. It's really cool that she knows it. I like the implications of it. I like thinking about what that means for Helaena and how she's reacting and her refusal to fight and to help Aemond, sort of this kind of fatalism to her decisions, that when he says, I could have you killed for this, and she says it won't make any difference. I mean, obviously she's talking about her imminent death. It makes her a much more complicated character. I really like what they did with her in terms of sort of expanding our understanding of her. I don't think this was a particularly good choice. Darius read it before. Says Helaena using wooden throne and doubt about winning though. I don't think it was. I'm not sure what the wooden throne part means. I think that could be the carriage. I think that might be his wooden throne, him and Larys riding away. But she says quite clearly that Aegon will become king again, and that she knows he's gone and he will return and basically win the dance. Which is true. He does win. unfortunately. Well, sort of. In the end, Rhaenyra and Damon win through Aegon and Viserys, but very much a Pyrrhic victory. Aemond and Damon's battle in God's Eye in the first episode of the next season. Oh, no. They're not going to do that till the finale of season 3. They're not going to kill Matt Smith that fast. Or Ewan Mitchell. They are way too popular. I think I hit all the dream stuff I wanted to. Definitely will be more of that coming in videos and stuff like that. So let's kind of go back to the rest of the episode, I guess, after I spent 45 minutes talking about 3 scenes. Sorry, I got people complaining last time that my new mic, I don't think I put in a noise gate so people can hear me drinking and swallowing too much. Hey, Silver Scale. Yeah, that was quite a lot. that was an episode. Yeah, let's kind of talk about the Triarchy. Oh, never mind. Hang on. Super chat from Brett Baumler, $5. Thank you so much, Brett. Yeah, so we can talk about Otto here. We'll go on this one. So Otto was probably captured by Beesbury, right? Daeron and Otto adventure next season. So in the ending sequence, they flash a whole bunch of stuff on screen leading into the next season, and we see that Otto Hightower is not ever resourceful. In fact, Otto Hightower got. Somebody caught him and has thrown him in prison, and he's been there for apparently quite a long time. And somebody's walking up with a torch to him. Stop putting in ads. Stop it. Oh, I'm sorry. Very quickly, Liat Rubenfeld just reminded me. The dragons being dead is Tumbleton. So you could see Vermithor, you could see Sea Smoke, and there were a few other dragons in the background, probably Tessarion. So that Damon was being shown the death of the dragons. I'm guessing in a way to try and motivate him to like avert that future, which is a common thing when people are given prophecies in this world. They are given them and then they fight against them. So I'm guessing Damon's going to interpret what he saw as the good things, if he prevents the bad things, the good things will happen. Unfortunately, it's not how it works. It will all come true. And his kind of struggling against destiny will make them come true. That happens a lot. All right, so where is Otto being held? So I watched it a few times. It definitely looks like the King's Landing dungeon. It would be really funny if he never left King's Landing. If on his way out, Larys just kind of caught him and threw him in the black cells. That would be very wild if that's where he's been all this time. Because basically what happens to Otto is when Rhaenyra takes King's Landing, Otto is there and then ends up getting, I think, executed for his role. So Otto being him never leaving King's Landing would make it kind of convenient for them story-wise, I guess. If he's just been there the whole time. Like, imagine if Rhaenyra takes over King's Landing and Damon's walking through the black cells and goes, Otto, what are you doing here? That would be kind of interesting. It would be very, very convenient. It does look like the King's Landing cells, but yeah, Brett Baumler says it could be reset. Absolutely. It could be elsewhere. He was on his way to Highgarden, and then he was going to make his way to Old Town to meet up with the army and stuff like that. So it would be, I don't know why the Tyrells would throw him in jail. Maybe just for funsies. That's kind of a Tyrell thing to do. There's also Brett Baumler's suggestion that maybe the Beesburys caught him. I think if they caught him, they would have killed him already. But you never know. Very much those have been set up as his enemies for letting Lord Beesbury die in the Green Council coup. But yeah, somebody in the chat said there may be like a swinging light. Maybe he's on a boat. Could be maybe the Greyjoys have him. That would make some sense. You're kind of running out of people that would have taken Otto and not killed him yet. And then why would you do it? Tyrells they could, but why? Beesbury's makes sense, but I think they would have killed him already. I personally love the idea that he's never left King's Landing. Larys just instantly caught him as revenge for the whole thing. If you guys remember, I talked about this during last season when Otto basically confronted Larys about his relationship with Alicent and how it's been noticed they spend a lot of time together, and Larys like went dead inside. It would be interesting if Larys just sort of caught him, threw him in the cells, and just like his little last laugh at the man. Like, oh yeah, you think I'm under your thumb? Guess what? Black cells. Nobody's ever going to find you again. Which would be a very, very Larys thing to do. I mean, disrespecting Larys is an extremely, extremely fraught thing to do. Otherwise, it's kind of up in the air. There's not a lot to go on from it. It's just basically kind of guessworking your way through his enemies. The Greyjoys, I don't even know how they would get him. Like, he wouldn't have gone to sea, he would have been on the roads. So, that's my guess. Yes, Michael Barry. Otto dies in King's Landing. So yeah, it would. That's what I meant by convenient. It would be convenient for the show if they don't have to have him somehow make his way back to King's Landing now, if he's just never left. Oh, a super chat from Mike Hanna. Thank you so much. Thank you, $5. Thank you for the Thank you for the $5. I know there are Daeron pretenders in the books. Do you think the show might keep him alive after the dance? Do you mean Damon? Daeron quite clearly dies with at Tumbleton. Damon, nobody knows. So massive spoilers for Damon's story. After the Battle of the God's Eye, there are a bunch of different suggestions about what happens to Damon, where one of them is he runs away with nettles. Some people, Gray Area has the idea that he becomes like the three-eyed raven of the South. Daring the Daeron has pretenders. How do I not remember this? Is this real? No way. Really? Did I somehow miss this? Oh, really? I totally forgot. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's interesting. That's kind of funny considering they haven't showed him yet. Which one's the real Daeron? Nobody can identify him. Huh. Wild. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I totally forgot about that. I need to reread the end part of the dance. Weird shit happens. A lot of weird shit. there definitely is the possibility that a lot of characters survive that have uncertain fates. That'd be kind of interesting. Um, his body was 2 damaged at Tumbleton. Yeah, I mean, the same thing kind of happens to Rhaenys, where it's like she's burned so badly that nobody even knows it's her, but they just kind of go like, I guess that's her. Daeron just keeps showing up. Maybe they'll make him look so generic it's totally possible. Green man spotting was badass, I agree. Michael Barrett, does Broom go to the Greens? Yes. He ends up betraying Rhaenyra and handing over Dragonstone to the Greens, which, you know, I mean, you don't have a character constantly say, like, I would never betray Rhaenyra, I'm the most faithful, I am super loyal, blah, 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 and then... Actually, let me change this for a second. Oh, I could have changed it to this. Well, I guess Alfred is right there behind Damon. It's kind of like Chekhov's loyalty check. He proclaims so often he's the most loyal. Why would you do that? To subvert expectations. Oh. So let's go to... I don't think I have an image for this, so we're just gonna throw up an image of Kristen looking sad because that makes me happy. Kristen looking sad is always good. So Tyland Lannister is having... he is having an episode. He is having a real strange one. So he falls through on Aemond's plan. Tyland is ever dutiful and effective. Surprising. He finds his way to the Triarchy and he looks super unhappy. He looks really hot. He looks uncomfortable the whole time. And he's trying to get the Triarchy to basically help the Greens by attacking the Sea Snake, which is already a pretty good deal for the pirates. And they know that they have Tyland over a barrel. They're about to lose the war. If the blockade doesn't get broken, you know, they really have no shot. So they push for it much, much more and say the price of them joining the war, a thing they already want to do, they already hate the Sea Snake, this will already help them to break him, is to give up the Stepstones. Which, of course, is a huge ask. And Tyland says, why? Because anyone that controls the Stepstones controls trade from Essos into the Narrow Sea. And also trade going across the Stepstones, which is more or less the safest path across the ocean to make your way to Old Town and Lannisport. And the pirates are like, just trust us, bro. We won't pirate these ships this time. We'll just extract a simple tax. Those are bad words to hear from a pirate. We swear, Scouts honor? We absolutely will not become pirates again. Just hand over this thing you spent like decades fighting for. Tyland agrees. At this point, though, there's no one... I mean, Corlys has said he's garrisoned the Stepstones and they hold it, but it's not like a strong hold. Like, they could knock it over if they want. They're more or less extracting the promise that the Iron Throne won't take it back after they go and do it. And then they say it's better than starving than giving up the Stepstones. And then we meet Shirako Lohar, otherwise known as Abigail Thorne, Philosophy Tube on YouTube. If you guys aren't subscribed to her YouTube channel, you absolutely should be. Such a great YouTube channel. Talking about actually stuff that comes up a lot in this episode. I mean, it's philosophy. Very in-depth, extremely well-made videos. And Abigail is a great actress too, it seems. I knew that she had done like stage work and that she'd been trying to break into the world of acting and becoming more of that as part of her repertoire, and absolutely nailed it. Did a great job. So they say we're all on board, but only if our commander of the fleet, Sharako Lohar, agrees to it. And Lohar walks up and says, "What sort of man are you? A poet? A philosopher?" And Tyland goes, master of ships?" Fantastic line. Love it. Aemond would have loved it himself, as he too has studied the histories and philosophies. He would have been on guard for this line of questioning. And it more or less, this whole sequence as it goes on is screwing with Tyland. That's what Lohar is doing. They explained in the after the episode that this was meant as sort of a moment of levity in a very grim show so far. That's kind of, I think that's how Sarah has put it. They wanted to have a little bit of fun. And so there's mud wrestling, and there's a lot of banter, and there's actually fun. There's not been a lot of fun recently in Game of Thrones. I mean, House of the Dragon. Oof, oof, oof. Slip of the tongue there. So more or less, Lohar says she will not sail with a man that cannot best them. And it turns out the challenge is like Nickelodeon rules mud wrestling. Like, I almost expected them to get up on the aggro crag, or like or some other physical challenges from Guts. It actually would have been great if they did Legends of the Hidden Temple, but with the Triarchy. That would have been awesome. But that's kind of what happens here. They end up getting into a weird they get into a mud wrestling fight, and Tyland kind of he sort of levels up in a weird way, where the Tyland that we've seen so far through the series has been very very reserved and quite awkward, and sort of not willing to put himself forward. He really likes being somebody that's kind of the power behind the throne, where he gives advice, but he doesn't have to do stuff a lot. You can see that's relationship with his brother Jason. Jason, more or less, I mean, he is the Lord of Casterly Rock, but they're twins, and the relationship that Tyland has with the king is probably the relationship he had with his brother. In this moment, he actually is not allowed to do that. In order to get the Triarchy pirates, Tyland has to stand up for himself. He has to actually use his skills and be forceful and sort of more or less fight for it, which is not a thing he has to do pretty much all the time. And we see that in the mud pit. Also, Lohar ends up screwing with him the whole time by giving him different names, calls him Timon and Tyrod. All I could think of was Tyrod Taylor, quarterback. Yeah, take a piece of the crag for the Triarchy ships. You have impressed me, Lord Timon. King's Landing has sent a more doughty ambassador. I don't know what that word means. And Lohar continues messing with him, says will consider his request if they have dinner, and goes like, "Oh, have you not eaten the flesh of your enemies?" "What? No, I have not, and I would not. So you reject the hospitality of my house?" And this is sort of the kind of like gesture character that they're having Lohar play, where there's kind of a dancing on the edge of madness to him, very much kind of like Daeron Naharis in a way, where there's a lot of jokes, there's a lot of good fun, but then you're not really sure where the jokes end. And especially Tyland doesn't know, because he just met this person. And then they all break into laughter. They give it to their high fives. Ah, we messed with the square. Got him. And then fast forward to the continue screwing with him really, really effectively. And then literally? Maybe literally. Hang on, let me grab it. So Lohar then makes Tyland sing a song called The Captain's Daughter, which is sort of a oh, I'm sorry. I missed your super chat, Mallory. Book accurate Daeron O'Harris. Yeah, exactly right. Nailed that one. There's actually a Dario looking character in the background. If I don't know if you guys saw him. Very, very much. So he sings this ridiculous song, and then Lohar like leads everybody in clapping. Way to go! Well done, Tyland. Well, calls him Tyrod, and he says no, it's Tyland. Proving yourself most accommodating, more accomplished than one I would think to look at you. Backhanded compliment, basically saying you're an unimpressive man who has done impressive things. Tyland's like, thanks. Not a great compliment, but you know, he takes it. Lohar agrees that they are going to leave tomorrow to sail to battle to the gullet, which made my my stomach cramp for a second. I'm like, oh no, oh no, oh no, is the gullet happening this episode? No, it's not. Obviously, all the exciting stuff is going to happen next season. And then the craziest thing, before you go, Lord Tyland, you are a handsome man and you've proven your worth and virility. I wish to have children by you. Tyland then kind of stutters like, you want me to? Indeed, I want you to F my wives. And this is my favorite part of Tyland in this entire episode. Actually, the shot of him on board the ship at the end was pretty badass. But so set this up. Tyland has been a pretty meek character. He stutters over his words. It takes a lot of pushing for him to kind of go forwards with what he wants. And his one question about Lohar confirming that Tyland should F her wives, he just says, how many? Tyland's going out like absolute death by snoo rules. That's his concern. His concern is how many are we talking? Not one, just how many. Incredible stuff. Really going full worth and virility mode on Tyland on that one. I wonder if that's why we're seeing like him standing so straight and proud at the end of the episode when he's on the front of the ship. That's a man that just spent the entire night having the craziest, wildest sex he's ever had with like woman after woman after woman after woman. Like, Tyland went man mode on that one. The stamina. He lived through death by snoo. It's incredible stuff. Love it for Tyland. Yeah. He can do anything now. It's almost like that was like the point of the physical challenges. It's craziness. I can't wait to see what Abigail says about the character. I've been seeing some stuff that she's been putting out on her like Twitter about the character, but maybe now that it's been more released to the public, she'll have more to say about it. She called Lohar extremely chaotic, I believe. Wish we saw the number of wives. More than one. As many gold pieces as there were in Casterly Rock. That's how many wives Tyland banged. Oh boy. Gotta love it. I thought that was the funniest part of the whole thing. Just how many wives do you have? Like he's like, okay, all right, what kind of challenge we talking here? Amazing. Um, what else? Oh, Jace. Okay, so we'll talk about Rhaena here because even though I think there were 4 scenes with Rhaena, it was like 4 20-second scenes that were chopped up, and not a lot going on. Obviously, what they're drawing on with Rhaena in the Vale is that after she ran off from the cart with the kids, who are definitely going to get kidnapped, and it's not like she was going to stop them anyway. That's actually one part I didn't really jive with Rhaena's decision. Like, oh, am I going to stay with the kids or am I going to run away to try and find this dragon? Like, Rhaena doesn't have a dragon. She's not a warrior. She's just a regular teenage girl. If somebody tried to kidnap those kids, she wasn't stopping them. Like, it wasn't going to happen. So it's almost like a false choice in the way that they set it up. Like, her abandoning them doesn't do anything. And you could probably suggest that she might think that getting a dragon would make it more likely for her to be able to protect them. Maybe that's kind of what they were going for. But so yeah, she abandons them and kind of runs off into the Vale, and kind of goes dragon hunting like an old school Pokemon trainer, running through the tall grass trying to find the Charizard that keeps burning all the Wooloo. It was... They didn't show her taming Sheepstealer, just finding Sheepstealer. And I think the reference that they were going for here is they very clearly were drawing a comparison between Rhaena and Daenerys here. This is basically the Great Grass Sea, but in the Vale. When Dany's trying to find Drogon. Well, actually, no. Dany gets dropped off by Drogon and then kind of wanders around for a while. That's more or less what they're... Even the thing of, like, the running up to the stream and drinking the water. I was like, I know how this went in the books. Hope you're okay, Rhaena. Hope there's nothing not great in the water, so we don't get a repeat of maybe the most infamously gross scene from Game of Thrones, from A Dance with Dragons. Everyone who knows. You know what I'm talking about. So, yeah, I don't know. This felt like they really stretched this out and didn't kind of do a lot with it. They tried to add stakes with Rhaena being apparently out of water and no food, and she's sleeping underneath the rock, and it's like, this is kind of a big journey for her, but it's so short about what they're doing, and they don't even show her actually getting Sheepstealer. She runs up over a ridge, and Sheepstealer goes like, "Who are you?" and then growls at her, and that's the end of it. I don't know. I talked about this in previous episodes when we were talking about Nettles being cut and Sheepstealer and Rhaena, that if they were going to do it, which it seems like they have, I hope they make it worth it. That there's a lot that they do something really special with Rhaena's character, because they pissed off a lot of fans for doing that. And this hasn't seemed like it. It's this kind of... She has spent the last 2 episodes running through fields trying to find Sheepstealer, and then arbitrarily found Sheepstealer, and then didn't even jump on the back. I don't know. There's not a lot to say. I mean, they're giving her hardships that are... I don't know. Again, I hope next season they do more with it. Actually, what was it in the chat? Samia says, I hope... Oh, wait, what was it? Subi says maybe she will start bringing him a sheep a day nettle style. Maybe they develop a relationship, but they really put the gas pedal on a lot of plot lines this season, except for Damon's. If they go like another, like, if we wait 2 years and then in like another 3 or 4 episodes before she actually jumps on Sheepstealer's back, like, that'll be crazy. Yeah. I don't know. Seeing Sheepstealer was really cool. Oh, sorry, super chat from Brian Holiday, $5. Thank you so much. The pursuit of the throne is destroying the peace while chasing it. Corlys, Aemond, Aegon, Kristen, Rhaenyra, Damon, Alicent, Jace. It can't end well. No. The pursuit of power in George's universe pretty much destroys everyone who goes after it. It does not get better. Everyone's the worse off for it. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they could have just had nettles in all those scenes. That, like, they gave Hugh like 3 lines. They gave him his big hero shot with Vermithor, and he mostly just kind of insulted Ulf this entire time. Adam didn't have a lot to do this episode either. I don't know. Doesn't seem worth it so far. Doesn't mean it won't in the future. I mean, obviously we're in the middle of a plot line, a new plot line. We don't really know where it's going. Not starting out particularly great. Yeah. So that was kind of a bummer, except for seeing Sheepstealer. I thought the design of the dragon was really cool. They made it look kind of mottled and almost like it had been left out in the sun too long. And the wings had like these large finger things that look like they could like interlock around itself, which I thought was really interesting. Do I have a better picture than Kristen? Oh, there we go. Also, kind of looked more... I'm not sure what the right way to say this is. The Targaryen dragons we've seen so far all look very, like, elegant. They look... Actually, I said this to Sandrixon. They kind of look like Pokemon in a way. Whereas you look at Sheepstealer, and Sheepstealer kind of looks like a very strange, like primeval sort of looking dragon. The kind of thing that would be like, that would be like the first generation of dragons. And then you look at like Vermithor, you look at Silverwing, you look at Caraxes, very different looking dragons. Cool colors. They definitely played up the idea that Sheepstealer has like this ugly brown color to it. It more or less looked like Sheepstealer's been rolling around in mud for a few years, which kind of makes sense. Which also makes me wonder, do the Dragon Keepers groom the rider dragons? Like, do they get up there and give them a nice brushy? Do they give them like washes every once in a while? Because Sheepstealer looked definitively quite dirty. Yes, a little trash dragon. Yeah, I called him a alley cat looking dragon. And that actually be kind of funny. There's that game Power Wash Simulator. Imagine if they did that with House of the Dragon. It's like, okay, you don't have to go up there and clean Vermithor, just like one little bit at a time. They look more groomed, and more looked together. Sheepstealer might be a cannibal's line, could be, or this could be like a weird sort of runty dragon. That kind of stuff happens. One thing I noticed about how Sheepstealer's wings look, I noticed that I said that they kind of look like fingers that could kind of close in on each other. You can sort of imagine that You could, like, Sheepstealer could get up on its haunches, put its wings behind itself, and then more or less, like, make a shell with its wings around itself, which is a very sad image. Because the truly wild dragons don't live with the other ones. They live on the, like, other side of the island. They're mostly kept away from the Targaryens themselves and the eggs, mostly because of the cannibal, but they kind of get left on their own. Feral cat versus house cat. Yeah. Sheepstealer's a feral cat. Rhaena trying to bathe sea smoke. Yeah, or Sheepstealer. Yeah, that'd be kind of funny. Gets him back, and it's like, all right, Dragon Keepers, let's do a grooming here. Let's make Sheepstealer look better. Also, Sheepstealer is a lot smaller than I thought, although it kind of makes sense. In Fire and Blood, Sheepstealer is not noted to be huge. Like sort of the size of somewhere between like Craxes and Syrax, and that more or less looked like it. Kind of a weird, skinny, kind of dirtyish looking dragon. So that was cool. Didn't get to see the cannibal or Grey Ghost. I was holding out hope watching this one we would get to see maybe the cannibal, but maybe next season. I know Ryan promised it, but I'm guessing the budget ran out. They put a lot of money into Vermithor killing everybody, so that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that was kind of the highlight for me. I mean, obviously I saw like I said, I saw the parallels they were doing with Rhaena and Daenerys, with her trying to find Drogon in the Great Grass Sea, not Great Gas Sea. Oh my god. That's kind of cool. It was just more like an illusion that they were making. There wasn't anything like significant to it. It's like, oh, Rhaena's putting in all this work in this sacrifice, and she's basically camping for a few days, is more or less what they're saying. I don't know. I want to see more from this. I want them to put more effort into Rhaena and Sheepstealer. This was kind of like the bare minimum. So that was a bummer. Yeah, and they haven't really made the case for why they did this instead of Nettles so far. At some point maybe they will, but they haven't yet. Let's talk about Aemond. Aemond is a very naughty boy. Aemond gets absolutely clowned on. Let's see if we can find... Gets clowned on at the end of the last episode when he sees Vermithor, Silverwing, Seasmoke, and Syrax all, like, ready to kill him. And apparently he took out his anger by going to Sharp Point and burning the town. Now that's not out of character for Aemond. Again, spoilers. This is what's going to happen. This is what happens in Fire and Blood. After Aemond takes Harrenhal, he goes around just burning town after town. Just kind of for fun. Him and Alice Rivers. Also, okay, so this is one thing I was trying to like connect with in my head. I've always wondered if Alice really wanted to go with Aemond or if she was a hostage to him. Her crying while delivering Damon to the weirwoods could be that she's not looking forward to meeting Aemond and what ends up happening between the two of them. Anyway, so yeah, Aemond just goes and burns down Sharp Point. And they said after the episode he did this because that is the home of House Massey. Now that's not true. I think they're mixing things up. Sharp Point is the seat of House Bar Emmon, not the Masseys. The Masseys live in Stone Dance. But I guess the Bar Emmons are sworn to the Massies. They kind of mixed it up a little bit. They had Lord Massey sitting on Rhaenyra's council this whole season. He was the grumpy guy that didn't get named a lot, that said a lot of really crude things. So Aemond apparently was so mad about being clowned on by Rhaenyra, he went and just burned another one of her important vassals' castles. Again, they just kind of combine things. Sharp point is, yeah, it's not the Massey's home, but whatever. That's more or less what they were doing. And he looks very, very satisfied that he's killed thousands and thousands of people and burned a city to the ground. Yeah. I think I think Ryan Condal misspoke after the episode when he said it was Massey's hometown. That's not who it is. Um, which, happens. Or they just combine them for funsies. I'm not really sure. And then he spends the rest of the episode more or less panicking about the fact that he no longer feels invincible. He no longer feels like a god like he has previously. And it makes sense that ever since he got Vhagar, he more or less has been feeling like the absolute man. Nothing can touch him. He is the biggest dragon in the world. Nobody can bully him anymore. He's the most powerful person in Westeros. Even if he doesn't have a crown, everyone fears him. Everyone depends on him. And seeing 4 dragons face him down apparently broke that kind of shield he had built around his ego. And he's kind of just thrown into a rage again and decides, I'm going to go ahead and burn stuff to the ground. Which is kind of interesting that he sort of denies that he does it, in a way. Like, Alicent confronts him later, and when he's talking to Helaena as well, and he keeps talking about, like, we have to protect the realm. We have to protect the crown and the realm by extension. Like, they depend on us. And it's like, Aemond, you just used your power to go burn a town to the ground for, like, no reason other than your ego getting hurt. It's the thing that Sylvie said to him earlier in the season, where it was when princes get their to paraphrase, more or less, when princes get their feelings hurt, it's the common people that get hurt the most. That their tantrums are wide-ranging, especially for dragon lords like Aemon. Boy, did that one come true. And he's more or less panicking. It's like the pink dread all over again. Larys says specifically that he's been embarrassed. That everyone knows that he turned and ran from Rhaenyra when he had a chance to attack her. And she was just sort of sitting there waiting. And all those feelings that Aemon thought he had essentially, like, removed from his heart, he had gotten over them. He's not that person anymore. He's tough guy, Damon part 2. And it's like, those things have never gone away. He's never dealt with them. They've just been buried. And when they show back up, they show up explosively. He just completely loses control of himself, like we saw with Luke and Arax, where his anger and his feelings of pain from his youth, that again he thought he had under control, just completely took over. And it manifests in his panic to even get Helaena to jump on Dreamfire. Now, I didn't know this about Helaena until this episode, that she basically does not ride Dreamfire, that she claimed the dragon very young and more or less doesn't get on her back. Rhaenyra says it that, what did she say? That she, hang on. She does not ride. She has no taste for it. And Aemond, knowing this about his sister, basically, I'm guessing that's why he tried to claim Dreamfire from the dragon pit. That more or less he knew that Helaena never got on her dragon, so he's like, maybe I can just steal her. Classic dragon thief stuff from Aemond. Yeah, and so all of his actions are fear and shame and kind of the dropping of his invincibility. And that has made him into basically let everything go, which is kind of terrifying. Who among us would not just pet Dreamfire, though? Seems like a pretty cool dragon. Dreamfire, like Silverwing, is another dragon that hasn't really had a long history of being super aggressive. He even hurts Helaena, grabs her arm, and while he's trying to basically drag her to the dragon pit, Helaena saying, "I will not burn people." Way to go, Helaena. Although part of me, again, wonders, because we're talking about Helaena, this is what makes her so hard to deal with when you're trying to, like, pull apart her motivations, that she so often speaks of things in the future versus what she's actually feeling. When she says, "I will not burn people," is she saying she won't do it because she has a problem with it, or she won't do it because she knows she doesn't? And it's kind of like which way to read that one. I think the way she said it in defiance leads you to believe that she meant it in terms of morality, that she thinks that Aemond's a monster for what he does to people, that he tried to kill Aegon, that he murdered all those people in Sharp Point, that he killed Luke. I'm guessing she meant it as a rejection of his idea of being like a new Maegor, more or less. But it's Helaena, so it definitely could be she knows she won't, and so she's just kind of like saying, "I won't. It doesn't happen." I like the first one better. I think it works more on a characterization than her just kind of repeating the things she knows from the future. But it was very sad, Helaena saying she was happier before she was queen, and Alicent going like, "Oof, I felt that one." Nobody's happy to be made royalty. Everyone's unhappy about it. And once again, we're getting set up here that it's kind of... I sort of liked the inversion that they did here. Alicent condemns Aemond for his actions at Sharp Point, and that he wants to win the war by mass destruction. He wants to use Vhagar to do whatever he needs to win, right? And Alicent is 100% against it, condemns him for it, basically calls him a monster, chastises him, and throws him out. Basically showing that, yes, he does actually listen to her, even though he pretends he doesn't, in the previous council scene. And so that becomes more or less the rationale Alicent gives for not this way. That's why she goes to Rhaenyra. That's why she offers to help her take King's Landing, to take the city without slaughter. She feels like she's averting quite a lot of death and destruction. Meanwhile, when we go back to Rhaenyra and she's talking with the new dudes, where are they? Where are the new dudes? There they are. Ulf, Adam, and Hugh. Her big plan with like a big, like, not a smile, but like trying to like downplay the horror of it all. It's like, all right, so we're just going to go ahead and destroy Old Town, going to destroy Lannisport. We're just going to go ahead and burn some cities, burn down some castles, going to kill thousands and thousands of people. Like, no big deal. We're just going to go ahead and do it. Kind of interesting that there's this big condemnation of Aemond. Meanwhile, on Dragonstone, Rhaenyra is plotting, I would say, arguably far worse than what Aemond did at Sharp Point. The scale of death of burning down Old Town and Lannisport is, like, tremendous. Absolutely insane. And this was something that came up a lot in the last episode in commentary, my own and other people's, which I thought was really interesting, that Rhaenyra has really been drinking the prophecy Kool-Aid, so to speak, that there's basically nothing she won't justify at this point, because she's now bouncing against the idea that she is the chosen one, that the gods favor her, that the prophecies about her, that if she doesn't take the Iron Throne, then all the world will die in darkness and endless winter. And she more or less makes that plain here, and you see the horror in Hugh's face and Vale as well. They're just like, wait, you want us to do what? You want us to basically sack the biggest cities in Westeros in order to win? And Rhaenyra's like, yeah. And if you do, you guys get knighted. Hey! That is quite a low price for for carpet bombing two massive cities in Lannisport and Old Town. Egg, I know you would have burned down the Hightower. Who amongst us wouldn't have thought about it already? But yeah, there's a very real sense that the justification of everything, anything to win, anything to keep her throne, is really settling in. I mean, the fact that she's just kind of sitting around wearing the crown now at dinner, I mean, she's doing it obviously to impress upon Hugh, Adam, and Ulf, and particularly Ulf. Ulf is such a dirtbag this episode. The difference between themselves, you might be dragon riders, but you're not us. You know what I mean? That's kind of what she's doing. But she's really playing into it. This is going to be a video that I'm going to make in the off season talking about the weight of prophecy and kind of what it does to characters. This is very similar what she's going through to the arc that Stannis goes through, and one that Daenerys in the books will likely go through as well. They had that character Kinvara talk to Dany and tell her that she's the prince that was promised, or Azor Ahai Reborn, and Dany just goes like, neat, in the show. In the books, it's far more likely to come with like the Fiery Hand or whatever it's called, the Volantene slave army, as well as the adherents of the Temple of R'hllor. And she probably will take it a lot more seriously because Dany's a lot more magically and prophetically bent in the books than she is in the show. Like, she listens to her dreams a lot, and it ends up kind of being a whole thing that she's kind of like her own Melisandre in a way, kind of reinforcing that. And you can sort of see that here through Rhaenyra, as well as the example, as well as the example of Stannis, where he justifies the murder of Shireen because he has to. He justifies the murder of Renly, and all these actions because the ends will have to justify the means. Like, it's the end of all human life. Is there anything you wouldn't sacrifice? And Rhaenyra's really, really leaning into that. And actually, I thought the part of this that was the most fascinating, and I had trouble squaring, was Mysaria. Rhaenyra tells Mysaria, I'm about to kill tens of thousands of small folk, all the people that You've been telling me their lives are worthwhile, that they're no different, that I will be the good queen. And Mysaria just kind of like pats her on the shoulder and says, yeah, but you have to. That part didn't. I'm going to have to go back and think about that one a few more times, because that doesn't seem like the sort of thing Mysaria would really be on board for. That she would encourage Rhaenyra, yeah, you got to do it. Like, you have to be on the throne. Yeah, those towns, those cities, they got to burn, okay? Because it's really important for you to be on the throne. Like, that doesn't seem true to her character. And the kind of things that she said earlier in the season. Now, I think we're supposed to understand that Mysaria has sort of kind of find herself subsumed by Rhaenyra in a sense. And there's a real way of imagining that. I mean, obviously we saw them make out 2 episodes ago. There's a real sense that there's a deep connection between them, and there's sort of this. Maybe I can, like, maybe Nysaria's like, all right, she didn't do something bad, but I can fix her in a sort of way. I don't know. I expected more pushback from her. Like, the characters I expected to go like, absolutely not, do not burn people to the ground, were not Bela and Hugh. Like, Ulf didn't care. I thought Mysaria would have been more horrified by what she was hearing. Yeah, maybe maybe it's just the idea that Rhaenyra and Mysaria have gotten a lot closer, and it's just kind of like going along with it, because but I don't know. She hasn't told her about the prophecy. She doesn't know about the White Walkers and stuff like that. I don't know. That part didn't really jive with me. Ulf doesn't care about much. Let's talk about Ulf. Ulf the sot. Ulf the dickhead. So Ulf has really, really gotten a big opinion of himself, very similar to what we see from Aemond, that he believes that Silverwing, being Silverwing's rider, has transformed him into the equal of everybody around him. And there is some truth to that. I mean, Aegon the Conqueror became the Conqueror because Dragon Rider. Like, it does make you better than everyone else in the sense of, like, militarily. You can just destroy everything. But Ulf, I think the scene with him and Jace is the. Also, I love Jace's glaring at Ulf right here. He hates that guy. When Jace walks in and he sees that Ulf is sitting in his mother's chair at the painted table with his feet up on it, and basically tells him, hey, get your feet off the table, you dick. What do you think you're doing? And Ulf was like, oh yeah, why don't you make me? And then Hugo's like, that's the heir to the Iron Throne. And that one kind of made me laugh, because it's one of those things where you sort of forget that nobody knows what the royals look like. It's not modern media. Most people have no idea who Jace is. If that's like the whole thing about Rhaenyra being able to walk through the streets of King's Landing dressed like a nun, is because nobody knows what she looks like, unless they have like personally been in her presence. And it's the same for Jace. Ulf could be a little bit smarter and see the kid wearing the obvious Targaryen sigils on his clothes and ordering around like, maybe that's a prince. But yeah, Ulf quite clearly is feeling himself real hard with Silverwing. And I find that extremely funny, especially his line of like, oh yeah, what about Vhagar? Me and Silverwing, we'll just go out there and take him out, no problem. You know, we're good for it. I'm sure quite a lot of you have seen the short I put out the other day about Silverwing. And also, Mods, if you guys could throw a link to the full video in the chat if anybody hasn't seen it, where I talk about all the unclaimed and wild dragons, and there's a whole segment about Silverwing, which basically breaks down to Silverwing's a big golden retriever, and she doesn't hurt people on her own. Like, we saw her literally like nudge Ulf away from her dragons instead of killing him, which is, if you're comparing that to Vermithor, what Ulf did is way worse than what anybody did to Vermithor. They were just standing in front of him, and he killed dozens of people. Ulf almost killed her children, more or less, by stepping on the eggs. And she's just like, hey, come on, man. Just get off of them. Silverwing would not win against Vhagar. Silverwing is like a very passive dragon. Not a dragon that enjoys killing, not a dragon that fights other dragons. She's just kind of a big, she's a big golden retriever that happens to look like a dragon. And just the arrogance of Ulf with a dragon he met apparently yesterday, and thinking that the two of them could go up against Vhagar and Aemond. I mean, like, I criticize Aemond in my video talking about him and the dragon bond, where I was like, well, they haven't had that long time together. They've had years at this point. Ulf and Silverwing met each other like a day ago, and Ulf's like, we can take him out. It's unbelievable to see his ego just grow exponentially just from that one ride on Silverwing. And you can sort of see why the Targaryens more or less feel themselves as gods. The feeling of power, even with a docile and friendly dragon like Silverwing, has completely changed Ulf's character, or I guess revealed sort of this longing for power and the ability to kind of not be under anybody's heel anymore. Like, he literally bristles at Rhaenyra saying, like, hey man, like, have some manners and I'll give you a knighthood. And he's like, yeah, all right, where's the knighthood then? He is talking back to Rhaenyra just because he has Silverwing. That is crazy. Whereas Hugh is, his character, he's much more humble, and Adam is as well. Both of them are much more humble about their new status. Hugh in particular, I thought this was interesting. I was listening to The Ringer, The House of R with Joanna and Mallory, and they were talking about sort of trying to fit Hugh into Sarah Targaryen's history. And one thing they brought up was maybe Hugh, even though he's now in King's Landing working as a blacksmith, maybe he actually was raised in noble courts with Sarah. If not in King's Landing, then in, I think it was Lys, where she ruled as more or less like unofficial queen of the city-state. So it's interesting that Hugh actually has royal manners. He has noble manners despite him being a blacksmith. And I thought that was like, kind of shows up here in the difference between their two characters. Ulf is Ulf. Ulf has never been anybody but kind of a raconteur scammer in King's Landing, like skimming people, like tricking people into buying them drinks, and kind of like a Saul Goodman sort of figure. Yeah, Hugh's like Saul Goodman. That's who he is. Saul Goodman on Silverwing. And it's like, what's that line about Saul? I think it's his brother that says, like, Jimmy Gill with a law degree. Man, that is terrifying. And that's more or less what happened here. You put Jimmy McGill on a dragon, and that's Ulf. There's also a very interesting scene in the montage they do at the end of the episode where you see Adam and Hugh getting put into their armor, and they both look like kind of proud about it, but they're kind of like apprehensive. And then they cut to Ulf, and he is standing like with his legs spread and his chest out, and he's got a cup, and he is smiling, looking at himself, and it's like, he is not going to live with just a knighthood. We saw this previously when he was proclaiming loudly for the true Queen Rhaenyra before Aegon came in. He instantly went like, "Oh, no! I mean, Aegon. Aegon's the best." It's quite clear that Hugh has no loyalty except the loyalty to himself, to what will benefit him the most. Like the reason he was probably proclaiming for Rhaenyra is not like their blood relation or anything like they were talking about, but that he was not having a good time with the blockade, that kind of stuff. Aegon wasn't doing his job, so that's why he likes Rhaenyra. And so he was kind of a figure that more or less goes to the highest bidder. Somebody who is still knows that he has to, from decades of experience, he, like, part of him knows that he has to be deferential to nobles, but another part of him is really feeling the Dragon Lord part of it and just kind of challenging them. Like Jay says he'll hang him, and Ulf just kind of, he's scared in the moment, but we see him coming back here for this dinner scene, and he has clearly brushed that right off. Oh, interesting, Samia. I actually disagree. I think Ulf was serious. He's cloaking his seriousness in humor. The kind of guy who, like, says something outrageous and then people get mad. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's just a joke, bro. I was just playing around. Why are you guys being so serious all the time? You don't have to be such uptight dorks or anything like that. I think that's kind of what I think that's what Ulf is really doing. I think he means all the things he says and the snark he throws out there. When he gets called on it, he retreats and hides behind, I didn't know, or I was just joking, or you guys need to get a sense of humor. I think that those were his genuine thoughts. Yes, and there definitely is, Subi says in the chat, maybe now that he has proof of his Targaryen blood, he doesn't see why he's any different from nobility. True. He is not any different. But that makes him a lot more dangerous for Rhaenyra. Like, he's displaying a total lack of loyalty to her, to deference, and he's more or less saying, you need to buy me off more than you are for what you want. Like, clearly a knighthood isn't enough. He's angling for probably a castle or a lordship or maybe more. From Fire and Blood, if you guys haven't read ahead, again, this will be a pretty big spoiler for Ulf, but Ulf convinces Hugh to basically betray Rhaenyra, and the reason he does it is because the Greens and the Caltrops, I believe, offer him more stuff. His loyalty is changeable. His loyalty is to Ulf. Whereas Adam quite clearly has no such... I mean, maybe he will at some point. He seems pretty happy to be a knight. Maybe he wants to be a lord someday too. But first and foremost, he is loyal to his queen. And Hugh is taking at least his duty to having this dragon and what Rhaenyra has done for him seriously. Although he definitely has doubts. I don't know if you guys caught that, but Hugh was pretty upset about the whole killing lots of small folk thing, considering that was him yesterday and his wife. So they're setting up, I think, here for Ulf that this thing that happens in the books where he gets bought off, but I think they're doing something very different with Hugh and something I like a little bit better. Hugh's kind of a character that's hard to read in Fire and Blood, and here they're sort of making it the idea that he may get disgusted with Rhaenyra's tactics, and I'm sure he didn't take it very well watching dozens of other dragon seeds die in front of him, and if that extends to you now have to be a butcher of cities, that's going to be tough for Hugh to swallow. Yes, also that his wife is apparently going to Tumbleton. Voltaire, the Gold Flame, says. Yep. So that will probably be part of it too. You know, if like Rhaenyra commands him to do the Gregor Clegane, like the make the Riverlands burn from the God's Eye to whatever, if she says the same thing for the Crown Lands and the Reach to hurt to hurt the High Towers, that may not sit well with Hugh. I think this is a better portrayal of him than Fire and Blood. Ulf is just straight out of the book, but played very well. It's really interesting to see kind of a shithead dragon rider like this. I imagine he's also taking inspiration from Bronn. This is largely what Bronn was like in Game of Thrones 7 and 8. When he's like, yeah, just make me a lord. And they're like, we can't do that. You're not nobility. And Bronn's like, so what? Neither were your ancestors. Like, I can do it too. Just pony up. This is what it costs. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Let's see here. Anything else I haven't talked about? Because I'm not going to last too much longer. Obviously, Jace had his pity party. Bela try and talked him out of it. It was interesting that the way that she kind of got through to him was a little bit interesting. Jace says, they're an insult to us. What makes us Targaryens? If any common lout can ride a dragon. Bela says, that does not make me common nor you. Her argument is basically, yeah, they can ride dragons, but they're not nobles like us. Oh, that class divide isn't really going anywhere. I always like the story of the first dragon riders. One of them is that they were shepherds who found dragon eggs, befriended the dragons, and then used that to start Valyria. And that more or less tracks with what we're seeing here from Ulf. Like, the heart of that story is, at one point, the Valyrians were nobodies. Then they got dragons, and then they became the greatest power in the world. And Ulf is not wrong. It just makes him kind of a shithead. But he's kind of been a shithead the whole time, just an entertaining and charming one. Corlys does have Targaryen blood in the books. There's a line, they don't say which one, but basically there were unmentioned marriages going from the Targaryens to the Velaryons in the long past. It just hasn't been recent. It's like as far back as Steffan Darkland or further. So Adam does have Targaryen blood, just not a lot. It's a long time ago. Like probably like 5-6 generations or something like that. Let's see here. I don't know if anybody else got chills when Damon said winter is coming. That was I love that part. And okay. So this is the one part of the Harrenhal sequence that I didn't really that kind of, I don't know, it kind of hit me in a weird way. So Rhaenyra shows up and none of the guys bow to her, and then they all like jump out of the way of Damon and like bow their head, and they're like, oh my god, my lord, like my king, that kind of stuff. Damon gets down on his knee and says, you are the true queen, Rhaenyra. First of her name, protector of the realm, I am meant to serve you and all those with me until death or the end of our story. And then all the Riverlanders jump down. Alfred Broom runs out. Simon Strong's like, oh my god. The part I didn't like was kind of the aftermath. It felt very, I don't know, like Lord of the Ringsy. where Damon gets up and shouts, "For every one of us who falls, 100 of them, there will be no mercy. We fight for our queen." And they all cheer and they high five each other. And then Damon turns to the camera and just shouts, "War! Yeah!" It's like, oh, what was that? Where did that come from? That was kind of that part of that thing with Matt Smith really felt kind of goofy. Although one thing I did like about it is that I've been saying this all along through the Damon Harrenhal arc, is that a lot of people were really reacting poorly to the idea that Damon would ever think about like publicly going against Rhaenyra. And one thing I kept saying, and something that is true here, is that Damon has not done anything yet. You know, thoughts are not actions, especially as for talking about like the history books and what is the truth of Damon's roguish heart. Him having weird dreams and thinking about it is not the same as doing it. And as far as the history, actually, this is something they harped on a few times this episode, the idea of how the histories would get something different. And this is the moment where you probably get the idea from Fire and Blood, where a lot of people are like, well, Damon would never do that to Rhaenyra. Look, he only ever supported her, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, yeah, this is probably one of the big, this would be kind of like an example of that. This is something like several thousand people saw of him publicly declaring Rhaenyra as his queen, and they will fight for her, and they will fight to the death, and et cetera, et cetera. What they didn't see is him having a weirwood paste, weirwood bed Alice Rivers, like crazy mind F happening all the time, and him like in his dreams wondering if he should take the throne or not, or him just kind of saying it to Alice Rivers in the hallway. Like, those are very different things. They don't feel different because we're an audience and we're just kind of, it's all the same to us. But if you're sort of thinking about it in terms of Fire and Blood and what would make it into history books, those are very different things. Private Conversations really did not make it into that book. So this is basically how they are squaring it with the Fire and Blood account of Damon's support of Rhaenyra. This is the public version. The private version is something very different, which is, again, something that's literally in Fire and Blood, where Gildane more or less says, like, these are the accounts of things that everybody knew about. These are not the accounts of, like, what happened in, you know, locked doors and behind the scenes and in their minds, and the things that these three characters, these three people didn't hear about. Like, as far as we know, he even rebuffed Alfred Broom and called him a traitor, even though he had been thinking about the same thing in previous episodes. So as far as the knowledge of who knows that Damon would want to usurp Rhaenyra, the list is Damon, Alice, Simon, and a few of his sons, maybe. And that's kind of it. Everyone else is more or less in the dark that Damon ever really felt that way. Publicly, this is who he is. And that's the important part. I still think that Damon's war yelling thing was one of the craziest things. That did. I didn't like that part very much. I was like, all right, Matt, do you know how to like rally troops or something? I'm not sure you do. Maybe needed some better direction on that one, while they were all like running around high-fiving each other. You guys are arguing about how did Adam do it. We don't know. George likes inventing marriages when they suit him. If it's important enough, I'm sure he'll put it in at some point. Or if not, who knows. Ooh, I loved the scene between Corlys and Alyn. That was a very touching one, and they gave this a lot of talk in the after the episode, where they more or less said Alyn's rage is that Corlys only wants him now that he's out of options. This is kind of like you've run through like everybody in your phone to like I don't know, like imagine you broke up with somebody and you just like went down the list of like trying to get back everybody you've ever dated, like one after another, and finally you get like to the one your last resort. And that's kind of how Alyn feels here. That if Laenor wasn't dead, and Lena, and Luke, and Joffrey a child, and Bela hadn't turned him down, and Rhaena wasn't an option, he would not be thinking of trying to make Alyn his son. And it kind of hurts him even more to know that he's the last option. It doesn't make it better. Like, I think in one hand you could sort of see it that way. It's like, well, isn't this what you wanted all along? Finally Corlys notices you. And that's not what Alyn wants, because as he details, his life has been miserable, and Corlys doesn't want him. He just wants somebody, which is fair. Corlys is outed as a very, very poor father in this scene. He obviously didn't think he had to take care of Alyn and Adam, but because it would be, I guess, embarrassing for him, embarrassing in front of Rhaenys, it would be embarrassing to the realm that the great sea snake fathered bastards, to present them at court and stuff like that. But you know who wouldn't have done that? Ned Stark. But even Jon Snow ended up feeling the stain of bastardy on him, so I'm guessing there wasn't really a way out of it. But the idea that Corlys basically let Alyn and Adam starve, and even when like winter was upon them and they were huddling around the fire and they had no money, and they who even knows what happened to his mother. She doesn't appear to be alive in the story at this point. Corlys never gave the boys a second thought, and it's extremely selfish of him to do it now. And I love seeing Corlys kind of get smacked around for that. I mean, you could see him sort of like going through the logic of, well, yes, okay, so I'm kind of out of heirs now. Oh, Alyn's a lot more likely than I thought. Maybe I'll give him a shot. It makes sense. It would make sense for my legacy. He's actually like a blood member at this point of my family, so that helps too. And not really considering the emotional damage that he's doing to Alyn by now recognizing him, when nothing has changed about Alyn or Adam. Well, Adam has changed. Alyn's the same guy he's been since he was a little kid. He only now gives a shit, and that feels horrible. Love getting this thrown back in Corlys's face. He really deserves it for being a deadbeat dad to those boys. It doesn't matter if he wasn't married to their mother or not. Like, he should have taken care of them. In that sense, characters bristle in the main series about how bastards in the North are treated much better usually, but it's more humane. Like, letting these kids almost starve was horrible. Let's see here. Corlys, King's Landing. Oh, we also have the Larys and so we got two scenes left. I'm going to talk about Alicent and Rhaenyra and Larys and Aegon. We'll go with Larys and Aegon first. So Aegon, I honestly almost laughed again. I've been missing Tom Glencarney, like, getting an opportunity to put like these little like accent marks on Aegon's character, and the one that I love the most is that Larys says, like, we have to get out of here. When your brother arrives, he'll probably kill you. And Aegon says, put me on the throne. When he walks in, we'll arrest him. And Larys is like, okay, cool. Did you consider what happens then when Rhaenyra shows up? And he had been like really sure of himself in the previous moment. He just kind of goes like, oh. Well, it's actually kind of like this like dawning realization when he's like, oh, fuck, I forgot about Rhaenyra. I think you can sort of see the milk of the poppy has been doing quite a lot to Aegon's mind. But I guess the whole speech Larys gave him about you're going to have to live in the world of strategy and outthink your opponents has not really sunk in for Aegon yet. Like, forgets about Rhaenyra and 7 dragons. Because it's like, if you punish Aemond, obviously he will not be able to fly Vhagar anymore, at which point you will be vulnerable. Aegon's like, forgot about that part. Damn. That plan kind of fell apart. Oh, thank you for the $5 goat scroat. That is a username. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So the thing that I found most interesting about Larys talking to Aegon is that I was talking to Gray Area about this, and they once again are playing with the idea that is Larys magical or really smart? So the thing that's going on here is that Larys and what he's saying about how Aemond and Rhaenyra, if they flee, that they will just bloody each other, and then eventually they can sort of come back together and take back King's Landing, and he'll be Aegon the Rebuilder, Aegon the what did he say? Hang on. Also the Realm's Delight. Amazing stuff. Aegon the Victorious, Aegon the Peacemaker, Aegon the Rebuilder. That part is playing to his vanity, but I think the other parts he said are exactly on the money. Everything he said is what happens in the future. Larys nails it. Like, yes, Aegon will become less of a threat and they'll stop looking for him because Aemond is a bigger threat, and the two sides will fight each other, and the people will eventually get tired of this war and rise up against Rhaenyra, and etc., and then you will come in as the conquering hero, and everyone will be glad to see you again. It's like, Larys, are you really, really, really smart? Or are you magical? Because you just pulled a Helaena. I was supposed to be on Gray Area's live stream today that she did with a bunch of people, but I had to work, so I couldn't be on it. I don't know. I feel like they want him to be magical. They're playing the same game that they did with Alice, and they've been playing with him both seasons so far. Larys knows exactly what's going to happen. Is he getting magical help? Or is he super, super, super smart? Or both? Especially when this is set in an episode where literally character just says to other ones what their future is. And it's 100% true. Larys does the same trick. But he's not like entering a dream realm to do it. I don't know. I do wonder if again, I think you have to wonder if everything that's happening to Damon has happened to Larys. Has he been shown the future too at some point? Like, did he get pulled out of bed by Alice Rivers, had his hand put onto the weirwood while it was bleeding, and then he saw his whole life and everything that's going to happen with the dance, and that's kind of why he acts why he does. Like, for instance, it would definitely change your understanding of why he murdered his family if he felt it wasn't a choice, like Helaena does, if he knew it was going to happen anyway. And if he's sort of a green seer himself, certainly he has his own weirwood to access in King's Landing, but he's also a very, very clever character. I don't know. They tried to play this game really hard with Alice, and it failed, because instantly everyone just clocked and went like, she's magic. Like, she's literally magic. Well, I definitely did. I was like, they made her a green seer, they made her a skin changer, she's messing with his dreams. You're trying to give us rational explanations for it, but with Larys, it's far closer to being a question. I could definitely see the end of this series happen, and there's absolutely no hint that Larys actually is magic and that they were messing with us the whole time. And I could also see it the other way, where eventually they reveal that he has touched the supernatural as well, especially with his lines about how he knows the power of Harrenhal, the thing that about how his father thought that Owl's Rivers cast a spell on him when he was born. That it's probably his weirwood bed that Damon's staying in. It's like the whole everything with the rats and how he knows things that he shouldn't, how he's way too good at his job. It's like, I don't know. I think he's magical, but this is one I have a lot of problems with trying to square. Like, he is unbelievably smart to be able to absolutely nail the rest of the dance from Aegon's perspective just from this. I don't know. What do you guys in the chat think? Do you guys think that Larys is magical, or do you think he's super, super smart? Oh yes, I can put up polls. We're just about done, by the way. I am losing steam. There we go. Put up the poll. Yeah, and the Rat King stuff, like, it's all there. All they need is one scene to confirm it, and all of it makes sense. And I think that's what makes him really fascinating. Well, there's lots of things that make him fascinating, but that part in particular. They are just one skin-changing scene, one scene with him with a weirwood away from just doing it. It's all right there. I don't know if they've decided yet. I hope you guys enjoyed the Boston accent I put on the super smart kid. I am from Massachusetts, although I do not have a Boston accent. I would just be posing to pretend to have one. And then the last scene to talk about that... Oh, by the way, Larys leaves with Aegon. So there's a suggestion in Fire and Blood that all the crazy things that happen in King's Landing are because Larys does it. Like, there's the whole thing where he eventually, like, basically struts his way back into the Red Keep. And it's kind of like, oh, he did all this. But here he's leaving with Aegon. My impression was he didn't leave with Aegon. He arranged for Aegon to leave, and he stayed behind to prepare for his return. Maybe they'll have him come back during season 3. He'll sneak back into the city, and he'll resume his role as, Master of Whispers and, fermenting rage within the city. But it's interesting that he literally left. Kind of curious how they'll do that. Maybe he'll come back for Otto. He's like, ooh, forgot something. I left Otto in the cell. Gotta go get him. So the scene with Alicent and Rhaenyra, I did think while I was watching it, it's not a good thing to have one character ask 3 times in extended sequence, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What does this have to do with me? Why are you here? What are you doing, Alicent? Like, I th- I get kind of what they're doing, that Alicent isn't sure herself of what she's doing, and they're trying to get Rhaenyra to prod her with the dialogue into getting her there. But I don't know. I felt that was glaring the first time I watched it, and then on rewatch, I was like, maybe you could have thought of something a little bit better than just having her constantly say, Alicent, what is the point? What are you doing? Um, Otherwise, the content of the conversation was really interesting. So we find that Alicent, hang on, let's jump off of Corlys. Oh, I had that one. I could have done that. I guess we're just gonna ignore the Christian. Well, okay, so quickly, the Christian thing is basically he's suicidal at this point. Um, and that he knows they're on a death march. Aemond sent him here to die, and he's just gonna go through with it. Gawain says, I'll send you to the Night's Watch for banging the queen. Kristen goes like, aha, Uno reverse card. It will embarrass you and your family forever, I guess. So, poor Kristen. He knows his life is coming to an end. His own side doesn't want him alive anymore. Freddie Fox, as usual, crushed it. That was a great scene between the two of them. I guess this will have to do for Rhaenyra and Alicent. I didn't get a screenshot for it. So I thought the scene itself between Alicent and Rhaenyra was really good, and I enjoyed Rhaenyra getting to snipe her back. Like, oh, your uncorruptible virtue. You had an affair too. Interesting. Alicent leaving out who it was with and in which bedroom it was in, because she's literally doing a Rhaenyra. And I thought it was great to finally have Alicent sort of own up to the idea that she has resented Rhaenyra this whole time for the freedom she never had. The whole thing about Rhaenys said to her about the building a wall in your prison, or window in your prison. Rhaenyra has been largely living outside of that, although because of being the heir and the princess, she had a lot more freedom in her life than almost anybody else. But still not all of it, as we've seen from shitheads like Alfred Broom and obviously the Greens plotting to take her throne from her. But you can really sense the closeness between them, that Rhaenyra is who Alicent wants to be. That there's this sense of it's like what is it? That Rhaenyra is like an aspirational figure to Alicent, and that she's sort of, and a lot of people have clocked this throughout the season, as I just did with her finding her way to Kristen Cole and in the same bedroom, but even in subtler ways than that, that freed from Viserys, freed from the duties of her position as Queen Dowager and even her role in the council, she's just kind of like, what if I just did what Rhaenyra did? What if I just did what my friend did? And I thought it was good to have them like actually say that out loud and like get snarky with each other. The part that I thought was the hardest to understand, and maybe the worst moment for Alicent, is that so Rhaenyra, at the end of it, Alicent basically gives her a bargain. She says to her, I will give you King's Landing, I'll give you the Red Keep. In 3 days, show up with your dragons, and I will command the guards and the soldiers and the gold cloaks to basically throw down their weapons and let you conquer the city. And her price is that she has to let Rhaenyra, Helaena, and Jaehaera go. Just leave the city and basically do a Daenerys and oh god, what's her name? Harris and Rhaella and Daenerys, and just let them run and not be royalty anymore, which isn't that ridiculous. That kind of thing has happened quite a few times, especially recently. Like Sarah Targaryen we were talking about, she's a Targaryen princess with multiple children to her name that basically got exiled from the royal line because the Great Council didn't want anything to do with them. It's not unreasonable for Alicent to be like, we won't challenge for the throne anymore. Like, me, Helaena, and Jaehaera, we'll just live out our lives and you won't have to worry about us anymore. Not unreasonable. That kind of thing does happen. There's sort of been this pervasive logic that ends up happening quite a lot, where it's like, well, if you have a claim, you have to push it. That happens a lot with kind of people who are trying to justify the Greens and what they did, and it's like, well, Aegon has the better claim, he has to push it. No, you don't. There are multiple examples throughout Targaryen history of characters who do not push their claims even though they have the ability to, or they just don't want to. So in terms of that part kind of checks out, but Rhaenyra kind of, in a similar way to what Ulf is doing, where she's been given this great gift. Like, she already thought she was going to be able to take King's Landing from Aemond, whether attacking Vhagar or just taking it while he's out of the city and ambushing him. And she also obviously has her plan to destroy the Lannister and Hightower armies and cities and use that to get basically everyone except Aemond to give up at that point, just hunt him down and kill him. But Rhaenyra could at this point. It's 6 or 7 dragons to 1. Well, 7 now. She knows Caraxes is back in the fold. So she can win, but Alicent here is being like, listen, I'll make it even easier for you. You can just have the city, I'll make sure it happens. And Rhaenyra just kind of can't let go of the idea that she has to push it a little bit more. She has to have Alicent agree to not let Aegon be sheltered and be hidden from him or escape the city before this plan goes on, that she has to let Aegon stay behind in order to be executed for Rhaenyra to end the war, more or less, and solidify her claim. Which is true, but it's quite another thing to literally go son for a son, like Alicent. Even though that literally already happened. Jaehaerys was the payment for Luke, but looking for another son, I guess. And Alicent agrees to it. And I think the reason that she goes, well, the reason on her mind and that she's really struggling with is that seeing Aegon after Rook's Rest, she believes that he's totally broken. There's no salvaging him, that he's beyond the ability to be able to function. That maybe it would be, in her mind, it's kind of like she's rationalizing it as a mercy to kind of save Aegon from his constant torment, I guess. Still really, really hard to think for her to say, like, all right, yeah, you can kill Aegon. I'll let you go for it. Very, very, very hard scene to watch. And although, funny enough, you can already see how this is going to break down. So Alicent has promised, more or less, Aegon will be in King's Landing so that when Rhaenyra takes the city, she can take him and execute him and use that to solidify her claim. Aegon's gone. He's not in the city. He has fled with Larys, even though Alicent is promising that she's going to let him be offered up as a blood sacrifice to start his realm, to start Rhaenyra's reign as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. So Rhaenyra is going to feel that Alicent has broken her word when she takes King's Landing. Imagine how that one's going to go. Probably not going to go super well. There's definitely stuff in Fire and Blood that there's rumors of punishments that gets visited on Alicent and Helaena. Some pretty horrific, some less horrific, but still pretty bad. Alicent does not skate on any of this. So you can sort of see the seed being planted right here of what will make Rhaenyra basically not trust Alicent and start to punish her. This is why. She's going to believe that, yeah, not great. That one's not going to go super well. Yeah. Wooden Throne is going to be interesting. Not App asks, is Sunfire really dead, though? No, Sunfire's not dead. They're going to save that for a season 3 thing, more or less, where they're going to reveal that Sunfire has actually survived. Everyone is assuming Sunfire is dead because that's what Kristen said. He came back and said, Sunfire is mortally wounded, Dragon's going to die. But they said the same thing about Aegon. They were like, he's 100% dead, like, he's not going to make it back, don't worry about it. Same thing happened here. So one other thing that I thought was really interesting, I don't know if many other people clock this, but so thinking about how Larys knew to get Aegon out of the city. Now he offers a fairly benign excuse. He says that one way or another, Rhaenyra's coming to the city, and like, what's going to happen to you then? You'll be executed, etc., etc. But you can note that they went out of their way to make sure that Alicent didn't just appear on Dragonstone, that she used Maester Orwyle, Grand Maester Orwyle, to get her passage and his discretion. Now, if you remember earlier in the season, there's an odd moment between Larys and Orwyle and and Alicent, where Alicent is talking to Orwyle. He delivers the moon tea, and then also Jesus Christ, I need to go to bed. Alicent confesses that she has doubts about Viserys' intention and asks him about it. And Orwyle says, like, I don't know what was said, basically, and leaves the room. Larys shows up like 4 scenes later and clocks the moon tea, and then out of nowhere asks Alicent about if she's been having doubts about Viserys' intentions, which kind of blows Alicent's mind. Clearly, and there's also the idea that Orwyle and Larys have been basically in cahoots with Aegon's health and physical therapy, more or less. You can assume here that Orwyle has told Larys what Alicent is doing on Dragonstone, and has taken that as the hint of, like, we gotta go. Which is kind of a cool thing. So yeah, they've established during the season that Grand Maester Orwyle and Larys have some kind of relationship where Orwyle narcs on the royal family to Larys, and he's one of his primary sources of information. So that's kind of what happened here. That this part is not magical. I mean, the idea that he knows that they have to get him out of the city because Rhaenyra is coming is definitely not magical. Orwyle just told him. But the entire rest of it is very, very odd. Oh, good night, Mallory. Is it a stretch to say he's just really politically savvy? No. They have established him as being incredibly politically savvy and very intelligent. But they've also offered a lot of hints in a magical direction too, that he may just be very smart as well as being magically inclined. The same thing happened to Bloodraven in his life. Everyone just kind of thought he was a genius, And he was, but he was also getting magical help when he was the spy master and Hand of the King. So similar thing could be happening with Larys. Anyway, Alicent's gambit's really going to backfire on her and Rhaenyra. We didn't get a scene of, what is it, Bartimos Celtigar this episode, but that guy's going to come back. We're already seeing, it's like been one day, and we're seeing the cracks in the new Dragon Riders with Rhaenyra. Ulf is a problem. Hugh isn't sure. Adam is loyal, as he always is, but yeah, they're basically more or less what they like to do with characters is they like to grant their wishes and then have it crumble around them. Rhaenyra has the dragons to win now, but there's going to be a massive cost to it. They sort of said that after the episode. It's like, I think Stephen Toussaint was like, boy, the blacks really seem like they're on the upswing. They're going to win this one. And this is like, did nobody listen to Helaena? I listened to Helaena. Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else? Any last Q&As, throw them into the chat. Try and answer a few of them rapid fire before I go to bed, because I just confused Rhaenyra for Alicent like 5 times in a row. So that's probably a good sign I should head to bed pretty soon. As for content that's coming up now with the season over, I don't know if you guys saw, they released a short trailer for Dunk and Egg. That'll be coming out next year. Obviously, I'll be covering that. I'll be making videos about the end of the season here. Ones I've been thinking about are obviously Damon and Harrenhal. I might make one about Helaena and kind of what I was talking about earlier, understanding how her powers work and how it kind of like makes her the strange way that she is. And there's a few others I've kind of sketched out, so I'm not going to just disappear for another 2 years like I did after the first one. I am far less burnt out this time. And I have some more book stuff I'm going to be working on, like one of them is, all right, so it's I've been thinking about taking those Blackwood streams, like those 4 streams I did of like 8 hours of just talking about the Blackwoods, and putting them into like a long form kind of like Blackwood documentary. I think that would be fun. And there's some other topics that I realize I've never actually talked about as videos on my channel. Stuff I talk about and I enjoy all the time. It's like, why not? So I have a list of stuff to do. So look more at the books and stuff like that. Oh no, I didn't discuss how Damon's dream aligns with my fire and blood theory. That was going to be one of the videos. But so to briefly say what Samia is talking about in my Pyres and Blood theory, that is based on Bookshelf Stud's idea of his theory he wrote about. He called it Ripples in the Dreamscape. I more or less argued that all the Targaryens throughout history that keep dreaming of Azor Ahai and the prince that was promised were all actually dreaming of Daenerys. They're all seeing her and kind of misinterpreting and not knowing who this character is. And seemingly, at least with Damon, that theory has been confirmed here. Damon does see Daenerys and sort of sees that as, doesn't know what to make of it, but knows it's kind of like the way to defeat the others. Somehow Daenerys, this figure with the 3 dragons and the 3 eggs, is the one that will save the world, and they just kind of have to make that happen however they can. So that one was kind of fun. That definitely will be a follow-up video where I'm going to take I've been taking a lot of victory laps with theories. But yeah, that one is more or less confirmed. I thought it was already anyway. I think that one actually, Alt-Shift-X thinks it was confirmed because he remade that video on his channel, so at least I convinced him of it. But yeah, everyone dreams of Daenerys and everyone thinks they're... Actually, I wonder if Damon is going to think that that was Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra has been wearing her hair very, very similar to how Daenerys did in that scene. The single braid at the back of her head. Like, I don't think that's been accidental. They've been having Rhaenyra wear her hair that way. I wouldn't be shocked if at some point Damon reveals that he thinks that he saw Rhaenyra somehow with those 3 eggs or something like that. That would be kind of interesting. Also, I was kind of thinking about that dream in terms of, is that what Aegon the Conqueror saw too? Because if you sort of go back and listen to what Viserys told Rhaenyra and what's written on the dagger, it's pretty close. I mean, there's some Daemon-specific stuff in there too, but I think the larger elements of the bleeding star, the dragons being woken from stone, the White Walkers and the death coming from the north, all that stuff. It's all there. So I think that's basically the prophecy in visual form. You can sort of see how those images get kind of misconstrued and kind of bounced around. And so you get a lot of Targaryens reading that prophecy and going like, oh, it's about me. It's like, well, you're close. It's about someone like you. Not quite. It's Daenerys. She's the one that hatches the dragons, and then there's a whole lot of other stuff that happens, but particularly for you Targaryens, it's very important that you guys know that she comes from you. Oh yes, winter is coming in High Valyrian. I'm going to memorize that one. Put that one on Duolingo. Show me. Sign me up. How would the show bring Maelor at this point? So this is talking about Aegon's last child, Maelor, is missing. And he said this episode that his dick don't work anymore, that it exploded like a sausage. So the obvious way, unfortunately, might be Aemond. If he and Helaena, like, there's some intimate moments between the two of them. If Aemond forces himself on her, or if they mutually have sex or something like that, that could, if Maelor is going to exist, it's one of those two options, or she's already pregnant by Aegon and she just doesn't know it yet. I would prefer that she is already pregnant and doesn't know it, but if it's not her, it'll probably be Aemond, which is, could go from, no, just be horrible either way. So I'm hoping not for that, but House of the Dragon. Let's see here. Everyone wants to be Dany so bad. So many people with Dany profile pics on Twitter want to be here so bad. One of Aegon's bastards gets elevated with a new name. I suppose they've already showed Game in pale hair. That would be kind of weird. Yeah, maybe they'll just cut Maelor. Like, there's some dragons that are missing too. Like, Jaehaerys and Jaehaera and Jaehaerys' dragons, I don't think are hatched yet. I think that's Shrykos and Morgul. I think they're their names. So maybe they just won't. Yes, AltShiftX has been giving me shoutouts. A bunch of people showed up in the comments of my last few videos saying that on his videos with Glidus, I think, that they've been talking about me, which is very kind of them. Is there a way Hot D can redeem Show Danny? Probably not in the eyes of most people that are still very upset with with how Game of Thrones ended. Like, having better setup for how you get to them won't fix the problems people had. I've been seeing people being like, "Oh, look at this! They recast Bloodraven and they redid it into a different character, more or less, or like more true to the books. And look, they did new shots for the White Walkers instead of just reusing ones. Look, that's not Emilia Clarke. That's some other Daenerys or someone else wearing that wig or something like that. Maybe they're gonna remake Game of Thrones off of this. I don't think they're gonna do that. Although I am curious why they chose to not just use Game of Thrones footage and they made new stuff, especially when some of that would have been pretty expensive and hard to animate. Like remaking the White Walkers and putting a bunch of guys in white costumes, not cheap. Animating the meteor, the red comet, not cheap. More baby dragons, also not cheap and kind of hard to do. And they had to make up that, I'm guessing that set was CGI for Bloodraven, but even still, like, those were expensive sequences and a lot of effort went into making those, and they had footage they could have just used. There's no reason they couldn't. It's curious that they didn't. Maybe just kind of showing up, flexing their muscles a little bit, like, look, we can do this too. We don't just have to borrow from the main series, or we can do it better. There definitely has been a sense of they've been trying to correct stuff from Game of Thrones that I don't think Ryan Condal is a big fan of. The Bloodraven inclusion definitely stands out as, man, he really did not like Max von Sydow and the original Bloodraven's depictions in the main show, and decided to actually make it clear that this is this guy. Yeah, I don't know why BGM why they said how Aemond dies. That's an odd choice. I don't think it had to be that that oblique. I don't think they had to say it for the general audience. Like, obviously we know. If you're watching the stream, you're a big enough nerd that you know what happens to Aemond. To throw it out to the entire audience is a different thing. I don't have to delete in my mind the last 3 seasons because I thought they were pretty good. I think in my review I gave season 8 like a B or a B plus. So other people have much more visceral reactions. I thought it was pretty good. Not great, not awesome, not fantastic, not the worst season of Game of Thrones by far, but still very, very, I thought it was very good television. It will be what George does? No, but still waiting on that one. Let's see here. Wasn't Condal one of the writers for the last couple seasons? No. He had nothing to do with the main Game of Thrones series. He was making another show called, it was like a post-apocalyptic show or sci-fi or something like that. He met George during some events and they got to know each other. But he had nothing to do for Game of Thrones. Thanks. Good for you then. I'm not sure what you're getting at. Don't have to delete anything. They could have done things better. They didn't, but overall pretty good. The Bloodraven shots help set up the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I guess. I mean, it's not really clear how much they're going to cover in the first season. My expectation is that they're just going to do the Hedge Knight for one season, and then each short story gets its own season. That would make the most sense to me. If they do it that way, Bloodraven doesn't show up in the Hedge Knight. But then again, he wasn't invented at that point, so maybe they'll fit him in. It is glaring in retrospect if you look at the timing of when the Hedge Knight was written, that the Blackfires don't exist and Bloodraven doesn't exist, at least as we know them, because George came up with them afterwards, which is why they get such a big inclusion in the sworn sword, because he's like, whoops, I forgot about these guys. Let me go ahead and put them in real fast. It is glaring that Bloodraven was not at the tourney at Ashford Meadow. That seems like the kind of thing he would be at, especially at his level of importance at that time in the realm. So they could be fixing that thing and putting him in. It'd be interesting if that is the actor that plays him. If he's going to be, it looks like they've shot a lot of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So if he's in there, that could be the character. That could be the guy, which would be really cool. I think that's... They didn't use Game of Thrones sequences. They want to pay. They wouldn't have to pay anybody. HBO owns those sequences. I don't think they would have to pay themselves to use their own property in the show, unless it's like royalties to Dan and Dave. But what they ended up doing was expensive anyway, so I don't think it was money saving. Yeah, that's one of the funny things, Samia, about the Hedge Knight. The reason the Blackfires aren't mentioned, the reason Bloodraven's not in it, is because George didn't make them up yet. It's one of those things where people sort of get surprised when they learn about it, that George made up a lot of what ends up in the books as he went along. He's not a planner. He calls himself a gardener, but it more or less means he improvises as he goes. So he changes things as he writes and more or less tries to make it look seamless, but every once in a while you see things where it's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And that's one of them. The Blackfires and Bloodraven not being in the Hedge Knight is weird. And that's the reason. Like another one is, what is it? Oh, Dany speaking High Valyrian with a Tyrashi accent. The reason for that is that in the early draft of her chapters that he put in Isaac Asimov's magazine, Dany was originally lived in Tyrosh. That was his original, that's where the house with the red door was. But when he put those chapters into the book, he changed it to Braavos, but forgot to change her accent. So he ended up having to sort of like backfill some stuff to be like, oh, this is why she speaks High Valyrian with a Tyrashi accent. She learned it the most when she was there. But that's not why. It's because he forgot to change the detail when he moved her when he moved the house with the red door from Tyrosh to Braavos. That's also the thing with the lemon trees. Lemon trees make sense in Tyrosh. It's he didn't know where Braavos was, and then he decided it was a little bit too northern, and then people were like, wait a second, hang on, isn't that a little bit too northern for lemon trees? And you can just sort of see him going like, ah. And then he wrote in all the stuff with Oberyn and the Pact and that kind of stuff to kind of write around it. So people aren't wrong to notice these things. There are stuff that happens in the books where you can sort of see the holes and moments where he forgot something and tried to retcon it. It's not planned most of the time. It's more or less whoopsie-daisies that people caught on. It's fun stuff. I like thinking about it that way, that it's not just a big outline he has somewhere, that it changes with him as he writes, which is also why it takes so long, but also why they're so good. He changes things and then he goes back and changes other things. This is the first time they showed a teaser for Dunk and Egg. As far as I know, they've released set photos, but this was the first video. Yes, also, Karo Karsnark, lemon trees do grow in colder climates like Braavos, especially during long summers. Like, I'm not trying to get into that whole theory, but that's the origin of it. That's why it seems out of place. It wasn't supposed to. He forgot to change them when he moved Dany from one city to another and then had to write around it. It just so happens that, yes, it's totally possible for lemon trees to be in a climate like Bravos, but that's kind of incidental. That's not why they're there. He then wrote to that as a way to kind of make it look less like a mistake. If that makes sense. Rather than a massive hint of some crazy big conspiracy, it's like a whoopsie-daisy that he makes sometimes. Like, again, the Blackfires and Bloodraven not being in the Hedge Knight. Anyway. I think that's probably going to be it. Yep, I think I'm going to head to bed and sleep for probably 15 hours or something crazy like that. I am struggling. So I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me this season. There still will be more videos coming out, don't you worry. I've got several in the works, scripts written, all this kind of fun stuff. Stuff will be happening during the off season, more kind of book focused, but also trying to get ready for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and discussions, longer form discussions of things that happened during the season that I didn't have time to make videos for, but I will have now. So yeah, thank all of you, especially new subscribers, everyone that donated during the season. And if you enjoy this content, you want to support me, in the description, there's links to my Patreon. There's also my Threadless shop, which also got updated recently. YouTube finally did integration, so you can go ahead and buy yourself a House Blackwood shirt. I think there should be a product link below this video or somewhere around it saying where to get this. And memberships are an option too. Stuff will be coming back to Patreon. I kind of put them on pause for the season because I was trying to hit deadlines, but yep, all that stuff is also just the link is JoeMagician.threadless.com, but links are, all this stuff is in the description. And if it's your first time here, subscribe because there'll be more coming. Anyway, I'm pretty tired. I'm sure I didn't do a great job covering everything. Look forward to other people doing a better job.